So that was the perfect.
Hello and welcome to the eSporter, the place for your latest scoops on eSport. So, this week we have a double header, which in case you don't know, means that we are going to be covering 2 weeks worth of RLCS videos because of the server issues that happened a few weeks ago. So this is going to be more of a quickfire review of RLCS Week 5 and Week 6. So without wasting any more time, let's get just straight into it with Flight versus United. Flight finally managed to win their first game of the season due to Memory finally putting in a good performance despite a disappointing season and winning the series 3-1 for Flight. Ghost ends up winning the series as you'd expect, despite Rogue not giving it to them easily with one of Rogue's best performances so far and winning the series 3-2. Shock ends up stealing another series for Sonics against the Knights with an overtime goal in Game 5. Then, despite a bit of a shaky looking series from J2, they still managed to easily beat a weak E United team. Next up was Cloud9 vs Space Station Gaming, and at this point it's just not even a surprise anymore that Cloud9 lost the series, especially when they were up against the Space Station Gaming that's looking incredibly strong right now. And despite how weak Pittsburgh Knights look right now, NRG only just barely managed to get the win over them with some strong plays from Justin to win the series 3-2. AXB takes player of the day for Week 5 NA with a solid showing in offense as well as defense against Cloud9. Jumping on over to EU, as for this series I quite like the way the Gibbs put it.
The only thing I gotta say about this game is someone had to win. That's about as best as I can put it.
And the someone won it, Singularity. It wasn't a great performance from either team in this one. Then it was Veloce versus Monaco, and it was an easy win for Veloce over Monaco, which means that Monaco is still the only team with 0 wins after Flight beat E United. Despite the 3-1 scoring games, it was a very close series between Reciprocity and Endpoint, which came down to some very long overtimes which went in Reciprocity's favour and ultimately gave them the momentum to take the win. This was a very surprisingly rough game for Mouse against TSM, both teams struggling to get any kind of attacking plays going, which resulted in some very low scoring games. Then Dignitas beat Barcelona 3-2. It was quite a close series between them, however Dignitas' relentless attacks just ended up beating Barca's defense in the end. Reciprocity's looking a lot stronger in this series against Vitality compared to when they played against Endpoint earlier. However, Vitality is just looking more and more dangerous with every series that goes by, and they managed to secure the win in the 4th game. Yukio gets the player of the day for Week 5 for his performance all the way through the season so far, getting some really clutch plays for Dignitas, which has secured them that #1 spot on the leaderboard. Now we're into Week 6, the double header, so there's a lot of games still to come up. We have Barcelona vs Singularity first, and it was a lot of flashy goals in this series, but Barca managed to come out on top as you'd expect from them, even if it was a little less convincing of a win than Barca would have probably liked to have. The next series was quite a surprising sweep for Endpoint over TSM, as Endpoint really played very well in this series, however TSM just doesn't look like playing up to par right now. It seemed that both Mouse and Veloce wanted to play more of a defensive game in this series, and Mouse just came out on top with 21 saves to Veloce's 14. Next up was a by-the-book win for Reciprocity over AS Monaco. Monaco tried to hold on with some pretty solid defense, but they just gave too many opportunities to Reciprocity, who made sure that they weren't going to have a repeat of what happened against Barca. In the next series, it looked like Dignitas was going to win the series 3-0, but an overtime goal for Vitality in Game 3 from Yukio's mistake gave Vitality the momentum they needed to reverse sweep Dignitas. Speed gets player of the day for EU in Week 6 for his solid performance against Veloce, which led to a sweep for Mouse. Finally, on the NA Week 6 was Space Station vs Flight. Flight tried to hold on in the series, but just couldn't keep up with Space Station Gaming and ended up getting a 3-0 sweep. Next up was E United and Sonics. Shock and the gang had fun 3-0ing the old teammate Hoxa and the rest of the roster. Then in quite of a close series between Ghost and G2, Ghost ends up handing, or should I say, wheeling, G2 their first loss in league play. Rogue finally got their second win despite how close a lot of the series have been so far, and it's against the Knights of all teams that they got the win. So as you'd expect from NRG, they smashed Cloud9. Oh, wait. A 3-0 sweep for Cloud9? What the f...
While Score is having a stroke, I'm going to present to you NA's Week 6 player of the day, who was Gimmick. Gimmick popped off against NRG to get the surprising win for C9. Let's wrap it up with some leaderboards and some stats. In North America, no real changes with G2 still in the first place. although they got their first loss, and Flight still in the last place, although they got their first win. NRG is starting to drop down the leaderboards, now in the 4th place, and Cloud9 is getting out of the relegation zone. Moving on to the European region, Renault Vitality took the lead off Dignitas after winning against them 3-2. ASM Monaco is still in the last place with no wins so far, showing that they are probably the weakest team in RLCS this season. Alright, my fellow Rocket Leaguers, that was it for this week's RLCS doubleheader week. It was really spicy. Is it going to be spicier next week though? We're looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of the eSport.